When high school teenager Natalee Holloway disappeared in Aruba in 2005, it became a huge story. Media from around the country and around the world descended onto the island as investigators tried to solve the mystery. Natalee's family was desperate for an answer, and much of the focus was on one person, Joran Sloot. Sloot met Natalee at a local bar called Carlos and Charlie's. She left with Joran and another man named Deepak Kalpo. Deepak was driving and dropped Natalee and Joran off near a hotel beach. From there, what happened next remained a mystery. Natalee's mother was so desperate to find out what happened, she agreed to pay Joran money for the answers to her questions of what happened to Natalee and where are her remains. Joran got paid, but did not give truthful information to Natalee's mom. He was subsequently charged with extortion in the United States, and today he pleaded guilty to the extortion charges on the condition that he finally answer Natalee's mother's questions truthfully. Tonight, we are live from the federal courthouse in Alabama with all the news from the courtroom and the shocking and heartbreaking details about Natalee's death straight from the mouth of her killer. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments, and the information you are going to hear in this hour, we've been waiting 18 years for. 18 years for an answer to the mystery of what happened to Natalee Holloway. So let's go back, 2005. Natalee Holloway goes to Aruba. It's a class trip. It's supposed to be a fun trip to Aruba, a way to celebrate the end of high school with friends. Sunshine, going out, meeting people, doing what kids do, right? It was supposed to be fun. It was supposed to just be fun. It turned into something completely different. Actually turned into the nation's biggest true crime mystery ever. And when I say nation, I mean Aruba. It was the biggest they'll ever have. And at the time, it was the biggest right here in the United States of America as well, as everyone wanted to know what happened to Natalee and who was responsible. And there were rumors and stories and conjecture and journalists and investigators all over that island trying to dig up any information, any evidence on the case, and then it just lingered. But all through, one person was always a suspect, Joran Sloot, always a suspect. And, you know, quietly, I think everyone said, yeah, he did it. But the question was like, what exactly happened and what did he do with Natalee, right? I think all along, as a suspect, everyone believed this was the guy. Then when he committed another murder, it became even more obvious that this was the guy. So today, he's in the United States of America because of the extortion charges, where he extorted money from Natalee's mother, saying, yeah, I'll tell you what happened, and I'll tell you where you can find her if you give me this money. Well, he got the money and he gave bogus information, got charged with extortion. He's in Peru. Peru extradited him here to the United States. So today was all about him pleading guilty to the extortion charges, but as a condition of all of that, answering those questions for Natalee's family. And today, I hope, was some level of justice for Beth Holloway. Some level of justice. I never use the closure word. You know, that doesn't happen. But for victims, if you don't have a trial, at least an answer, what happened, who's responsible, so I can at least turn the page on this. And I think that's the most that we can hope for. But it took a long time to get here, a long, long time. So let's take a listen to what happened today. It was inside a federal courtroom, so there are no cameras permitted inside there. But when it was over, Natalee's mom came out with some others and they spoke.
Today, I can tell you with certainty that after 18 years, Natalee's case is solved. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. It's over. Joran Sloot is no longer the suspect in my daughter's murder. He is the killer. In the course of his felony prosecution, here for extortion and wire fraud indictment, he gave a proffer in which he finally confessed that he killed Natalee. He described when and how he killed her. And he said that after killing her on the beach in Aruba, he put her into the water, and that was the last that he ever saw her. That was all verified by a comprehensive and conclusive polygraph test. Even with this confession, though, he can't be tried here for Natalee's murder. But I'm satisfied knowing that he did it alone, and he disposed of her alone. I won't give you the details of his brutal confession. Those will be forthcoming when the proffer is made public. You will also have details of the plea agreement which was reached. His sentence of the extortion and the wire fraud will run concurrently with a sentence in Peru for killing Stephanie Flores. And that's fine with me. Thanks to a lot of very smart and dedicated people here, I got the answer I've been searching for the past 18 years. Joran Sloot's confession means we have finally reached the end of our never-ending nightmare. And for me, reaching the end of the nightmare, being over, is better than closure. It's been 18 years since Natalee disappeared, and Natalee would be 36 years old today. I still miss her every day. It's been a very long and painful journey, but we finally got the answers we've been searching for all these years. We finally, today, we got justice for Natalee. So thank you all so very much and being supportive of us in our long 18-year journey. Thank you.
Amazing strength, that family, through all these years, but able to smile today. And that's good news. That's good news. Everything she said right there, talking about getting some sense of justice. And I say it all the time for victims' families when we cover trials here on Court TV. If the jury comes back and says not guilty, the victims are left empty. Like, I didn't even get justice. I didn't get the answer. But today she did get the answer. And Natalee's family got the answer. Okay, let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who is there and is joining us live from outside the courthouse in Birmingham, Alabama. Chanley, great to see you. I want to begin speaking about the family here, and let's start with Beth and Natalee. This relationship, this mother trying so desperately to get justice for her daughter. Incredible strength there, and understand you got to speak with her as well.
I did, Vinny. You're right. Beth Holloway is an inspiring tower of strength, grace, and determination. It was an honor to meet her in person and to sit down with her after she learned what she'd been fighting to hear for 18 years. She told me, Vinny, that she's pleased with the plea agreement that prosecutors were able to reach with Sloot's defense, and she believes his confession. But she says this is over for her. Let's take a listen.
It's over. The never-ending nightmare is over, and for me, it's better than closure. And everybody has their own words that they use, but that is mine. Over, to me, is better than closure. That's my nightmare, and it was a never-ending nightmare. I was never going to get out of the weeds. I was never going to get out of the rabbit holes, but it's over now. It's done. I feel pretty victorious right now. I'm feeling like we've accomplished something that we set out for 18 years ago. So it's a huge weight is lifted. So it feels great. It's over now. Her murder has been solved. Joran Sloot is no longer the suspect in Natalee's disappearance. Joran Sloot is the murderer. He's the murderer. He's the killer of Natalee. So that is now giving me that never-ending nightmare being over. I think right now what I miss most about her is she would be married. She would be a doctor by now, I have no doubt. She would have children.
And Vinny, I was also able to speak with Natalee's brother, Matt Holloway. In one of his rare camera interviews, he had some strong sentiments to say about Joran Sloot. Let's watch. Do you believe what he had to say?
I personally didn't. He's been such a liar his whole life. That's all he is. It's just a psychopathic liar. So I take it lightly. I believe he can, his confession, that's what we've been hoping for so long, for him to actually admit that. All the confessions that he made, did it all for himself, and he forgot about one thing, and that was me. So he will be seeing me again when he thinks he's a free man.
Vinny, he went on to say that he might get in trouble, but Joran, he forgot one thing today. That's when he's free in 22 years. Matt's going to be in Peru waiting on him.
Wow. Wow. All right, so let's get to some of the specifics here about what did Joran say in this confession of his.
He was graphic and revealing. We were able to learn tidbits during the hearing, Vinny, from Ms. Holloway and the judge, but we received an actual transcript of the proffer that took place 3 weeks ago with the FBI, with the prosecutors, with the Holloway family watching in real time. Here's a portion of what Joran told the authorities about Natalee's murder. He said, I lay her down. We laid down together in the sand. This is after they left that bar. We start kissing each other. I get her to kiss me again. We start kissing each other. He says, I start feeling her up. She tells me no. She tells me she doesn't want me to fill her up. He insists. He says, I keep filling her up either way. Then Natalee knees him in the crotch, he says. So he gets up and kicks her extremely hard in the face. She's laying down, he says, unconscious, possibly even dead at that point. Right next to her, there's a huge cinder block laying on the beach. He says he sees that cinder block and he takes it and smashes her head in with it completely. He goes on to reveal that her face was basically collapsed in. And even though it was dark there on the beach, he could tell that she was dead. So he says afterwards, I don't know exactly, but he's scared, he says. He then decides to put her in the ocean. So I grab her and I half pull and half walk with her into the ocean and push her off, he says. Now, when I asked Beth Holloway about this confession and hearing it for the first time, Vinny, she said, of course, it was painful to watch, but she was proud that her daughter fought back.
That was the first thing that struck me as well, that she fought back. What was it like inside that courtroom?
Vinny, I've never really felt anything like it. I've been working for Court TV for almost 5 years in dozens of courtrooms. This was a moment where, first, it's a packed house, of course, media from all over the world. 5 rows of family and friends of the Holloway family, including Beth, Natalee's father, her brother. Joran Sloot surprised everyone entering 10 minutes early before the actual hearing started. And he walks in, he's in his jailhouse orange, Shelby County Jail, big letters on the back of his garb. He's confident. His shoulders are back, his chest is out, his chin is up. He smiles, he greets his attorneys, he shakes their hands, whispers back and forth, and then sits down. He's tall, he towers above all of his defense team there inside the courtroom. He had some stubble, like he was not freshly shaven in the face, had gained some weight, of course. But he did choose to speak and give a statement. He spoke with an accent, as you know, and he had an opportunity to say something. He stood, Vinny, and he apologized. Here's a paraphrase of what he said shortly in the courtroom. He did glance over to the Holloway family before he started talking, and he started by saying, I want to take this chance to apologize to the Holloway family and to my own family. He went on to say that he hopes this statement provides his proffer, meaning his confession, provides some closure to the Holloway family. And he went on to say that he's no longer the same person, Vinny, that he was 18 years ago, that he had given his heart to Jesus Christ. And his voice waned off a bit. I couldn't hear what else he said because those around me, I was sitting by family and friends of Natalee Holloway, They started rumbling in their seats, rolling their eyes at each other. They couldn't believe what he was saying, that he had found God and he was a new man today. But he wasn't the only one to speak. Of course, Beth Holloway took the opportunity to deliver her victim impact statement in front of the courtroom. Vinny, she stood. She walked up to the podium, but paused right in front of Joran and looked directly at him in the eye for about a second or two, and then turned towards the judge and read her statement. Here's part, and this is paraphrasing what she told the judge and Joran. She spoke directly to him. She says, Joran, for 18 years, you lied to us about killing my daughter. Your lies and fake news caused indescribable pain and grief. Now you're guilty for trying to sell me her remains. And she would repeat, you are a killer. You didn't get what you wanted from my daughter, your sexual satisfaction, so you brutally killed her. She went on to say that we do have one thing in common, Joran. You have a daughter. I had one, but mine is no longer here. She said, what if your daughter was Natalee? What if you were me and someone bludgeoned her body and then got off on porn? What would you want to do to that person? And Beth said, I would want to kill him. Vinny, I couldn't see the front of Joran's face sitting in the gallery, but I could see his profile in the back of him. And he would, when Beth mentioned his daughter, that's when I noticed him grab his orange shirt and he would wipe his face. He did it at least twice while she was talking. But my standout moment from her statement in the courtroom was when she suddenly paused what she was saying, turned to him and said, by the way, you look like hell. And I don't know how you're going to get through this. And the courtroom erupted. All the supporters laughed and agreed with her.
Amazing day. Amazing day. Everyone is so glad. We are so glad that Natalee's mom had that moment, because afterwards we saw that smile. So it's some level of this weight has been lifted from her and from her family. Although, as her brother said, as Natalee's brother said, he doesn't forget. So let's talk about this plea and what it means. So how much time, where is he going to serve it? And now that he's confessed to the murder, will he face charges for that murder?
It doesn't look like it. And Beth Holloway says she's okay if he never does. This is what was agreed to between the prosecution and the defense. They agreed, of course, if he was truthful, if he passed this polygraph and provided this information to the Holloway family, that he would serve 20 years for his extortion and wire fraud charges, which is 240 months. That is the maximum, and it departs upwardly from the federal statute guidelines for sentencing here. So the judge mentioned that several times. But again, Joran agreed to that because it's going to run concurrent with his Peruvian term. He's already serving confessed murder of Stephanie Flores for 28 years there in Peru. So he has 22 more years to serve for both this and the murder of Stephanie Flores in Peru. When he's released, he will have 3 years of supervised probation. He has to pay back Beth Holloway that $25,000+ that she sent him in 2010, hoping he would be truthful then when he lied to her. Another condition, he agreed that he wouldn't appeal this, but also the prosecution, the government here, can never use what he confessed to against him, Vinny.
Okay. Well, he couldn't be charged with murder in the United States anyway. It didn't happen here. They don't have jurisdiction. Right. Chanley Painter, amazing reporting today. So glad you were there. Court TV legal correspondent. We will speak again. Thanks so much. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to dive into that statement, that confession that Joran made. Does it make sense? Does it add up? Was he telling the truth? Plus, coming up next hour. In Delphi, Indiana, Abby and Libby German were brutally murdered in 2017. 5 years after the murders, Richard Allen was arrested and charged. He says he's innocent and is pointing the finger at local Odinists. Tomorrow, a huge hearing with court TV cameras inside the courtroom, and we are live from Indiana tonight with a preview.
But the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation.
With Patronez claimed to be a millionaire, but when his wife realized it was a lie, she ended up dead in her bathroom.
You have fake pride over this woman's death.
Now he stands trial for her brutal murder. The Bathtub Murder Trial, weekday mornings on Court TV.
I've worked hard all my life. I learned the secret to success is speaking in your authentic voice. And I bring that lesson to my show every morning.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Do you want to relive the biggest moments from our captivating trials? Stay up to date on all the breaking legal and true crime news? Well, Court TV's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channel have exactly what you're looking for. So come join the conversation with us at Court TV. We are your front row seat to justice.
Welcome back to Closing Arguments. What a huge day. A conclusion, an answer to the Natalee Holloway mystery. We all had our suspicions for years, obviously, but Joran van der Sloot confessed. We got that written confession here at Court TV. Our producers took a look at it. Now it's time for you to take a listen to it.
Plus, she asked me to go back to her hotel, but I was just trying to get dropped off a little bit further away from her hotel so we could walk back to her hotel and I might still get a chance to be with her. That's what I was hoping for.
Okay, so what happens?
Yeah, and Deepak drops me off at another place, a little right of the Marriott Hotel known as the Fisherman's Huts. This place, it's not so far from, the next hotel is the Marriott. And the next hotel after that is another Marriott, which is a timeshare. And then it's the Holiday Inn. We walk along the beach.
All right, do Deepak and Satish get out? Come with, what happens?
No. Deepak and Satish leave. They leave, they go back to their home. I assume they go back to their home. They get in their car and they leave. I'm actually with Natalee, walking along the beach. I find a space before we get to the Marriott Hotel, where I lay her down. We lay down together in the sand and we start kissing each other. I get her to kiss me again and we start kissing each other. And I start feeling her up again and she tells me no. She tells me she doesn't want me to feel her up. I insist. I keep feeling her up either way. She knees me. She ends up kneeing me in the crotch. When she knees me in the crotch, I get up on the beach and I kick her extremely hard in the face. Yeah, she's laying down, unconscious, possibly even dead, but definitely unconscious. And I see right next to her, there's a huge cinder block laying on the beach.
Okay, so when you say cinder block, I'm looking at the walls of this place. Is it like those?
Exact same cinder blocks. I see a huge cinder block laying on the beach. I take this and yeah, I smash her head in with it completely. Yeah, her face basically, collapses in. Even though it's dark, I can see her face is collapsed in. Afterwards, I don't exactly know what I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And I decide to take her and to put her into the ocean. So I grab her and I half pull and half walk with her into the ocean. I push her off. I walk up to about my knees into the ocean, and I push her off into the sea. Yeah, after that, I get out and I walk home.
That's the confession, telling the world what he did. Joining me tonight in New York City, Court TV alum, CNN legal correspondent, my friend for over 20 years, Gene Casares. So great to see you tonight, Gene. In Los Angeles, California, another guy known for so many years, Inside Edition's chief correspondent. You recognize him. Jim Moret is with us in Jacksonville, Alabama. He was at the courthouse today, forensic death investigator, professor of forensics, and the host of the very popular Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan. And in Los Angeles, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist, associate professor, Pepperdine University, Dr. Judy Ho. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Gene, let me begin with you. As all this has transpired today, and we're hearing the details tonight, what are your thoughts tonight?
You know, I do have some questions, but Vinny, we started covering this together on Court TV when it happened, day after day, night after night we did it. I did it on Nancy Grace's show for Night After Night. I went to Aruba with Court TV producer Michael Christian when a jawbone washed up under the shore, and everyone thought this must be the evidence here. It was not. I went to Peru for Court TV and CNN. I was there for a month covering this on Court TV. And when I look at this today, the question that I have, because we've heard so many stories, Vinny, from Joran van der Sloot. We could cover the whole hour with his stories. And many involved the beach, and many involved a boat, and many involved the ocean. But now he says, and I want this to be true for the Holloway family. I want this to be true. And there was a polygraph that he was given, and it was a verified polygraph. They said he passed it with federal agents. But I do wonder if he just walks out to the ocean and the water is just to his knees, and that's where he leaves Natalee. Why didn't she wash up on the shore? We've covered so many cases where bodies and suitcases with bodies in them wash up to the shore, but Natalee didn't.
Great point, Gene. Jim Moret, chief correspondent, Inside Edition, covered this story in such great detail. Does this whole story make sense to you?
In a way, it does, Vinny. It's the simplest explanation. It's something that those of us who've been covering this for a long time kind of thought was something along these lines. You know, I'm looking at this. It's just less than a page and a half. It took him under 4 minutes to go over this confession. And it's the simplest of explanations. He wanted to become physical with her, to get sexual with her. She rebuffed him. He kicked her. She was unconscious. Then he sees a cinder block and kills her. You know, the idea that she washed away makes sense to me, because it doesn't make sense that she could have been anywhere else on that island. It was combed over and over and over. And I keep thinking, I've been thinking all day, I spent a lot of time with Beth at her home in Alabama. She came to my home in Los Angeles. We'd spoken, spent hours with her. And, you know, she was haunted, as was Natalee's father and her brother. And, you know, just the idea that there is a sense of relief that they can breathe now and perhaps begin to heal is comforting in a lot of ways. Absolutely. Joseph Scott Morgan, would there be evidence on this beach if, in fact, smashed with a cinder block, blood, the cinder block itself, would there be evidence of a murder? I know, you know, it's a beach, there's water, there's wind, there's all of that. Would you expect that there would be any trace of something having happened on that beach?
After all these years, Vin, no. Maybe
not now, but when they were doing the initial investigation, would people have come across it? Would it be obvious?
If what he is saying is accurate, where he was talking about, and I hate to go into this, but where he is saying that that lovely face, after he brutalized it, you're talking about bone being fragmented, and there's a possibility that there could be some remnant there at that moment in time. Could there have been blood? Sure, at that moment in time, if you had gotten there quick enough. But, you know, we're talking about tides here, Vin. And, you know, the beach, people go there for pleasure, but people don't really realize how harsh that environment is, and it is ever changing. So to find something there, even, I don't know, probably within 3 or 4 days after the event, I think would be kind of a stretch.
Dr. Judy Ho, psychologically, we kind of know this guy is a bit of a sociopath, to put it mildly, but the moment that he described, where a young man is trying to make an advance on a young woman, she rebuffs it, and he gets it in the crotch. the response from him, the kick, and then to take it to the next level with a cinder block, does any of that make sense in the mind of a killer? Or in the mind of and this would be his first murder, I presume. The second one was in Peru, but this is the first time he's taking someone's life.
Absolutely, Vinny. And I know that it's hard for us to imagine that because we couldn't think about being able to do something like that and essentially have no emotional reaction whatsoever, it seems. But for somebody who might have psychopathic, sociopathic tendencies, their entire MO is about getting what they believe is owed to them. And it doesn't matter who they hurt or potentially sometimes kill if they stand in the way. And it sounds like such a ridiculous thing. Okay, you didn't get what you wanted sexually, so now you're going to kill this woman. But human lives don't matter the same way to individuals who might have sociopathic and psychopathic tendencies. Essentially, other human beings are just a pawn for them to move around in order for them to achieve their own goals. And I think connecting this to the second murder, after committing this first murder, getting away with it, and essentially realizing that he stays intact as a human being, afterwards, it kind of lowers the bar for a second crime. And we sometimes see this with individuals who have psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies.
All right, we've got great guests there staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk more about today, 18 years in the making, Joran Sloot admitting to the brutal murder of Natalee Holloway.
Tell us where the kids are.
This mother of two missing children just didn't seem to care.
I mourn with all of you who mourn.
Victim to Verdict. All new Sunday night, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Today, I can tell you with certainty that after 18 years, Natalee's case is solved. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. Joran Sloot is no longer the suspect in my daughter's murder. He is the killer. It's been a very long and painful journey, but we finally got the answers we've been searching for all these years. We finally, today, we got justice for Natalee. He is a killer. He will always be the killer. He will always be now the black mark in Aruba.
Beth Holloway actually smiling today. Amazing. I want you to take a look at a couple of maps here. These are based upon Joran Sloot's confession today as to where he went and how he got there. We begin at Carlos and Charlie's. That's the bar, no longer in Aruba, but in the car they drive north to the Fisherman's Huts, which is right by the beach. And then from there, they're supposed to go south past the two Marriotts to the Holiday Inn where Natalee was staying, but obviously she never made it there. Gene Casares, Jim Murray, Joseph Scott Morgan, Dr. Judy Ho still with us. Gene, how about the places that he describes, the Fisherman Huts areas, that part of the beach? How would you describe that area?
Well, let's look at the facts. She was last seen with him, and that area, and it's not that far away. So that is completely conceivable that he is telling the truth right there, that is where they walked. He says they went to the beach. Now, were there cinder blocks on that beach in 2005? I mean, that's a fact. Do we know? And they are porous, so I think you had an excellent point right there, because if there was blood, it would go in the porous nature of that cinder block, which can be used for a weight for a boat, so I can see that it could be there. But so far, what you're saying, it seems like it could be true, and we've heard that in some of his variations of his story.
Jim Murray, what are your thoughts about the different areas he describes and whether or not that sort of adds up and why no one would have witnessed any of this?
Well, look, one of the questions that everybody had were the Calpo brothers, the two friends that were addressed, who were also arrested multiple times. Were they involved? And based upon this confession, they were not. They dropped them off at the beach and then left. So they weren't involved in the crime itself, but they certainly perhaps knew about it afterwards. It makes sense that their car brought them to this beach. And as you suggest, it was so painfully close to her hotel where she was supposed to be. You know, I tend to believe the confession, but I read a couple of quotes today, one from Natalee's younger half-sister, who's now 20, and her dad, Dave. They believe the confession, but they don't believe he had any remorse. They don't believe the apology. But I think a lot of the questions about how they got to this location, where this crime allegedly occurred, and for the family, I think the questions, as Beth says, it's done. They're answered. They're happy with what they got, and he passed the polygraph, so they're comfortable with the confession.
Joseph Scott Morgan, let's go back to that point that Gene made earlier about the body. If he just sort of walks out into the water and, I mean, wouldn't the body wash ashore? Wouldn't there be some evidence? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I was just talking to a colleague about that today. I mean, we all know what the experience is like going to a beach. It takes a long time to get out past the breaking waves. And that's what you have to accomplish. Of course, you still got the current that's drawing things in toward the shore. So I really have questions about how far out you would have to go in that location. I think that's actually a good Bobby Chacon question, by the way. How far out would you have to go in order to facilitate that with the deposition of the remains so that you're not going to have a guarantee they're going to wash back ashore? I've heard over and over again him allude to a boat, both with these brothers, and of course he's thrown his dad under the bus a couple of times relative to this. So, I don't know how necessarily a boat would play into this if he were able to remove the remains to a boat so that you could get the body out that far so that no one will take notice. It's really hard to understand the dynamics, the hydrodynamics here, if you will.
Dr. Judy Ho, I'm wondering about this polygraph. If you're a sociopath, like you don't feel anything, does that nullify polygraph results? Is that something? What are your thoughts? Do you think someone could beat it if they are that, messed up like Joran Sloot is?
Yes, Vinny, polygraphs are not 100% reliable, and for some of the reasons that you just mentioned. Individuals who have psychopathic tendencies, oftentimes they have a reward system loop that is different from the rest of us. It also means that their brains tend to light up a little less at exciting things, whether they're exciting in a positive way or things that should be scary to someone, or things that people should react to on some level physiologically and emotionally. And so there's long been research that because their brains are different in this way, that perhaps the polygraph is something that some of these individuals can pass with flying colors, and that they're really, really great liars, essentially, even on a physiological level. So, of course, that is a concern. There's no 100% reliability with polygraph tests, but given that it's been so many years, this is essentially the best form of corroboration they have at their disposal. We can't look at forensic evidence in the same way at this point. And I think a lot of this has to go back to the family, whether or not they accept this and say, this is good for us.
Absolutely.
And even if there are these questions, we're going to let it go and try to move on from here.
Okay, before everyone goes, I'm short on time right now in this segment, our final segment on this story, but I'm going to put everyone on the spot. One word, I'm just looking for one word tonight that describes everything that here has transpired. And I'll begin with Gene Casares.
One word, legal history today.
Jim Moret.
One word, relief.
Joseph Scott Morgan.
Questions.
Dr. Judy Ho.
Catharsis.
Thank you all so much. So great to see everyone. Gene Casares, Jim Moret, Joseph Scott Morgan, Dr. Judy Ho. Have a great night, and really, really do appreciate you being here on this night that we've been waiting 18 years for.